we ready to rock and roll? Yeah, we can go. Can I suggest? Hello, 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 hello. Come in, come in, come in. There's tons of space on the ground here. So if people want to go ethnic style, we can sit on the floor. We can get really comfortable. There's lots of space here. So feel free to come forward. I want to start by just having a quick acknowledgement and thank you and appreciation for people that are doing this shit for free. There's about 600 or 700 speakers that are here today that are not being paid to do what they do. There's about 200 volunteers that are here that are not being paid to do what they do. I met you, Pauline, earlier. You're doing what?
I'm covering all the event for free.
How much are we paying you to cover this thing? We're paying her fuck all. We're paying her nothing. It's amazing. It's like the Burning Man of conferencing. It's crazy. I got this call from was it Chris? He's like, oh, I'm going to get you to do this conference. I said, oh, cool. My speaker rate is this. No, you can do it for free. I said, what do you mean you're going to do it for free? Everyone does it for free. I was like, okay, cool. I'm only here today. I'm actually leaving straight after this event, unfortunately. So I made a little video about all the people doing free shit. Whoops, let's see if we can get audio on the free shit. Have you guys got audio on this laptop? I feel so bad for the tech teams. I'm going to do a bit of VR. I'm going to have a phone plugged in. I'm going to have 2 laptops on stage. But they're really cool. All right, let's try that again. This is a little video I made for these guys. So what am I doing in Italy? Well, I'm here for the International Journalism Festival. The thing about the International Journalism Festival is almost everything's for free. What are you doing?
I'm reporting for this event for free.
The key here is free. Everyone's doing it for free.
How are you volunteering?
I'm writing a press release.
How much are they paying you?
No, I am working here as a volunteer. They are not paying.
The speakers speak for free. Most of the volunteers do it for free. Most of the venues give it away for free. Because it's all about teaching young people cool shit.
200 volunteers, over 700 speakers. They're all giving their time and energy entirely free. It works, and what I can do is invite other people next year to come here for free also.
Thank you. There's an old saying, information wants to be free. And in a university town like Perugia, it really is true. This is #OurStories. What's yours? Cool. Round of applause for all the people doing free shit at this event. Guys, if you're at the back, come forward. There's loads of space here. We can do like yoga. There's so much room in this space. Can we get back onto the keynote presentation? No, this one. I got 3 things plugged in here, so the guys are a bit confused. The laptop. This one. We'll get there. You got it? This one over here. So, I've been to Italy like 3 times this year. And my feelings about Italy remain the same every time I come. And that feeling is that journalism is fucked in Italy. Like really, really, really fucked. And I think that there's 3 reasons why. You can tweet that. That's at Yusuf Omar essay, Perugia 2018. Journalism is fucked in Italy. The reason I think is threefold. A recent report came out that 80% of journalists here are freelancers. And the average freelance journalist earns under 10,000 euros a year. That means that journalists earn more where I live in South Africa. In South Africa. Than they do in Italy. It's crazy. On top of that, you've got really quite diverse cities. When I go to Rome, I see lots of brown people from the Middle East. I see lots of refugees. I see lots of West Africans. I see a cosmopolitan and diverse place. But when I look on Italian television and I read Italian bylines, they're all old white people. So there's an issue with money. Journalists are not getting paid enough. There's an issue with diversity. The third issue that I see is Italy is quite a big, long, weird-shaped country. But the vast majority of coverage that we see comes out of Rome. In fact, almost all the international correspondents that we see come out of Rome. So we don't really have an idea of what's happening in this great expanse. As newsrooms are getting smaller and smaller, as they're tightening up on their budgets, running out of money, to pay journalists. We're not expanding more bureaus, we're consolidating into the major cities. And that means we have less of an understanding of what's happening on the ground. And I think like a 3.5 points, that if the first is money, the second is diversity, and the third is the sort of landscape of the country and not covering a great expanse of it, I think the final reason is culture. If you look at most of Europe, Italy's fallen a long way behind when it comes to Wi-Fi, when it comes to access to OTT, high-speed internet. But I think that can change. And I think a lot of the examples I'm going to be sharing with you today from the African continent, from India, is actually stuff that Italy can learn. And we can then leapfrog, and we don't make the same mistakes that the US made, and we don't make the same mistakes that the UK made. That's my social media handle, Yusuf Omar SA, Italy, journalism, fucked. I own that one. Imagine for me for a moment if a satellite that Elon Musk puts up into the sky crashed outside this hotel today. Hey guys, I'm outside Hotel Brufani in Perugia where a satellite has just hit the ground. Nobody's been injured. We're just getting the reports that are coming through now. Did none of you guys see that this morning? That shit happened. Now, if a satellite was going to land in Perugia and smash, and big breaking news, who do you trust to tell that story? Do you trust this guy, the broadcaster? Have you gone to journalism school? You've gone to film school, you've done your thing. He's a qualified journalist. He's got the big broadcast camera. He's credible. Or do you trust this young woman? What's her name? Asma. Oh, we're tweeting each other. We're buddies. We've been like kind of stalking each other for a while. Or do you trust Asma? Asma's got her mobile phone. She happens to be on the ground. She happens to capture what was happening right there and then. I'll tell you what I trust. I trust all of you. I trust 100 people being there when the satellite went off and being able to give me an idea of what happened there. And I trust the journalists to be able to aggregate all of your voices, all of your cameras, and make sense of it all and say, 100 people tweeted this morning that a satellite landed in Perugia. They're all verified accounts, therefore it must be true. And we've used triangulation and various fact-checking mechanisms. So community and citizen journalism and traditional media are not mutually exclusive. They're going to work together. Good journalism has always been about a variety of sources, a variety of voices, a variety of opinions. And I believe that curating from communities, citizen journalists, is Italy's greatest chance of saving journalism here. I believe if we better listen to voices on the ground, we'll better understand what's going on. I am a mojo. I'm a mobile journalist. I'm a jeans journalist. I'm a selfie journalist. Everything I need to tell a story fits in my pocket. I've been doing this since 2010. In 2010, I actually hitchhiked from South Africa to Syria, from Durban to Damascus, telling stories up the whole east coast of Africa. In 2012, I went to Congo when an ammunition depot exploded in the middle of a civil population, killing hundreds of people. In 2014, I went to Syria, where I was smuggled in with a group of surgeons that were building a hospital in the province of Darkush. I've seen a lot, and I've done a lot with my mobile phone. And over my life, if there's been one major trend, since 9/11, since the Twin Towers went down, two fundamental things shifted. One, every time I flew to the US, I started getting more searches, you know, the name Yusuf and that kind of stuff. And number two, the biggest stories of our time have been reported by people on the ground with mobile devices. And this trend is only going to continue. If you disagree with everything I've said to this point, you're not alone. In fact, a lot of people disagree with what I say. I was recently speaking at a conference in Copenhagen, and the editor of one of the biggest news organizations in the world, the BBC. I said, hey, the future's mobile journalism. The future is people with mobile phones telling stories. And this is how he responded.
I was wowed by your presentation. And then I thought, yeah, but this isn't journalism. Curating selfies isn't journalism. I mean, it's interesting. I'm glad you're doing it. I would die rather than do it. I don't want to watch it either. But it sure isn't journalism. Journalism is finding things out and reporting them. Journalism is not collating people's privately recorded opinions.
And I'm sure you feel similar sentiment in Italian newsrooms. I'm sure there's an old guard of journalists that say, all of this selfie stuff, all of this Snapchat and Instagram, this is nonsense. That's not journalism. We are the sole arbiters of truth. We are the only ones that can say what stories are. The fact is, in the 2 years since that BBC editor made those comments, almost every major story of our time has been reported by people with mobile phones. Do any of you guys know this young woman? Anybody know her? Yeah? Bana Alabed, East Aleppo. Bana is 7 years old, and with the help of her mother, she live streams in East Aleppo at a space where there are no journalists on the ground.
8, 9, I want to leave. Now it's okay. No bombing.
Now, of course, Bana's opinion is not objective. It's not journalism in a conventional space. But that doesn't mean it's not of value. Guys, whoever's coming in, you're welcome to come and sit at the front because it's quite a long session. I talk a lot and you won't want to leave. So you can come chill. Come. Don't be shy. Please. Even there's chairs here. You can have this one. You can sit right here. So Bana's voice is of value. And I think that our job as media is to contextualize and verify and authenticate and find that voice. And as a collective, those voices, welcome. Let me give you a chair, wait. You can have this one. There you go. We make everyone home. There's another chair up here, guys. Another big story was Black Lives Matter. If it wasn't for people with mobile phones that were documenting police brutality, in many cases, we would know nothing about these stories.
He was trying to get out his ID and his wallet out his pocket, and he let the officer know that he had a firearm and he was reaching for his wallet.
So this presentation is called what? 14 Tips for Community Journalism. Take out the word community because this is just becoming journalism. This is community journalism, citizen reporting is now becoming journalism full stop. Another example, Grenfell Tower, big building caught on fire in the UK. Young woman, 23-year-old Rania Ibrahim, was stuck on the 23rd floor. My generation, what does she do? She doesn't phone her mother. She doesn't phone 911. She goes onto Snapchat and Facebook Live because that's our generation's way of engaging with the world.
We're stuck on the 23rd floor! Hello! There's too many people stuck upstairs!
And now I want to talk about the next billion people. The next billion people to come online. They're coming online from the African continent. They're coming online from Asia. And the biggest singular trend that we see with the next billion people to come online is that they are not engaging with technology using typing or texting or even Siri voice control because Siri is racist. It doesn't understand my accent. No, they're engaging with the world using their camera. The camera is becoming our point of paying for stuff, of recognizing people, of doing all sorts of things. The camera is the access point to technology for the next billion people to come online. I run a company, let me start by saying I was a foreign correspondent for 5 years across 16 African countries. I used to work at the Hindustan Times under Bobby. Hey, say hello, Bobby. Bobby wears the same outfit every day. It's amazing. He's got this amazing look. I worked at the Hindustan Times. He gave me the greatest creative mandate in the world. We had 750 journalists across 27 offices. And my job was to teach them how to tell stories with their phones. And it was awesome. I then moved to CNN in London, where I worked on the Snapchat team and on social media, and that was pretty cool. And my wife and I have now started a company called #OurStories. And over the last 3 months, we've traveled to 27 countries, ranging from Palestine to Australia, training communities how to tell stories using their mobile phones and creating shows out of this.
We're the next billion mobile users, and we won't be silenced. We're here to engage and inform.
Empowering mobile storytellers to bring about reform.
We don't need satellite trucks, and that's a fact.
Faster and cheaper than that.
Good storytelling has always been about more voices.
And mobile cameras simply means more choices.
With more angles, perspectives, and truth than before.
There's a different way of telling stories.
We need to explore. Let's not ignore traditional media success, but surely we're better than this.
Our stories are being drowned and the conversation has ended.
Truth and trust have been lost, but mobile storytelling can mend it.
Finding narratives in the noise, we don't need to conform. Let's identify languages lost in the storm. See, a lack of media diversity is what's really affecting me. We talk about fake news, but don't listen to enough real views.
We know misrepresentation can lead to wars. So this is our cause.
Hashtag our stories.
What's yours?
So we're active in 27 countries. We're working with communities. We have aspirations to be just as big as a BBC or a CNN or an Al Jazeera. And we want to do it entirely with mobile phones. And I'm going to share with you guys tips from all of the places we've been to that you guys can implement in your newsrooms, you can implement in universities. I'm going to tell you everything I know. Over the last 3 months, we've tripled our social media following across Facebook, Instagram, mainly on Facebook. And despite algorithmic changes pushing publishers down, we're finding success. And these are some of the reasons why. 14 tips, as was promised. I want to start with a story actually in India. We were looking for marginalized groups, people that are not being heard by the mainstream media. And one group that we found was garbage collectors, waste pickers. They were identified as somebody who weren't listened to by the mainstream media. So we trained up 20 garbage collectors how to tell stories using Instagram. And then I didn't hear anything from them for 10 months. Not one story. And I was like, wow, the training failed. They're busy, they're collecting garbage in Delhi, they don't have Wi-Fi access. Why would they share Instagram stories? Then the Indian government raised the GST tax on recyclable plastics. And out of nowhere, we suddenly started seeing hashtag waste GST popping up on our social media timelines. And what had happened is when their livelihoods were being affected, when they were actually in a situation where they were losing money, and the media were not listening to them, they resorted to using their mobile phones to share their story. And with the work of activists and lobbyists and lots of media attention, the Indian government actually reduced the GST tax on recyclable plastics, directly impacting their lives.
Hold down the white button for 10 seconds and take a video.
We're doing a mobile journalism session here in Nizamuddin with the community.
He says, I'm not going to give up because I need to eat.
बहुत सारे कबाड़ी भाई लोग खड़े हैं और वो छटाई कर रही बस्ती है.
With a lot of waste pickers, teaching them Instagram stories so they can tell their stories.
To amplify the voices.
We want you all to become selfie journalists. So pull out your phones and I need you to go to Instagram stories. To make sure the sun is behind you.
देखिए यहाँ पे कि धूप हमारे पीछे है. ऐसे ही होना चाहिए.
Your frame is cut into thirds. Draw a storyboard. A start, a middle, and an end. You have to start your day with, hello, my name is...
मेरा नाम शब्बीर आलम है. राजेश कुमार है. गणेश कुमार.
कितने भाई ने तक खाना भी नहीं खाया होगा और शाम तक छटाई करके माल बेचेंगे अपना, फिर कहीं जाके घर में बच्चों के साथ जाएंगे.
I'm going to leave that there. You guys can find it online. The point is, imagine in a place like Italy, in a big country where we don't have a big footprint of journalists on the ground, how we could tap into voices in the very south, across the country, tap into communities that are not being heard by the mainstream media. If we want to make minorities in Italy feel included in society, it starts by listening to their voices. And there's so many voices that we're not listening to. If we're going to do this kind of project, you need to drastically change the metrics. My metrics, by the way, you guys know this is a camera, right? I'm not a hip-hop star. I'm not wearing sunglasses indoors. I'm taking videos, like you're taking videos of me. If you're going to do this kind of project, you need to change the metrics. For me, my metrics of success is, I want 1 million views. I want 10,000 people to comment on my video. I want it to share 50,000 times. I want all these kinds of things. For the garbage collector, what's his metric of success? It's getting the local government to listen, to reduce the GST taxes. If we're doing a story in a community about fixing potholes, the community doesn't care if you get 5 million views. They care if the local councillor fixes the bloody pothole. So if you're going to get into community journalism and look at solutions-oriented storytelling, you need to drastically change the metrics of what success is. We were working with refugees. We trained up a group of Afghani refugees who are living in Serbia. in Serbia, and their dream is to make it to Germany under trains and buses and trucks. And for me, when I see refugee stories, what do you guys see when you see refugee stories? Tell me. What's the images that we see? We see brown men in rubber dinghies arriving on the coast of Europe. That's the visuals I see of refugees. And for me, it's so difficult to relate or empathize with them. They don't even look like humans anymore when we paint these kinds of pictures. So how could we tell the refugee story differently? So we went to Serbia and we trained up a group of refugees, and one of them, his name was Uzer. Trained him up in mobile storytelling and just left him to his own devices. And guess what he chose to speak about? Education.
Hello. Hello, guys. My name is Uzay Fakirzadeh. Today, I heard a lot of the guys, they come and they want to enjoy and they want to learn new things from here. The biggest problem for the refugee in this school is that they couldn't understand story too much well, and
So the message here is let the community determine what the stories are. Don't train a group of people and say, hey, I want you to talk about sewage. Hey, I want you to talk about waste management. I want you to talk about water. Because we could have never predicted the kinds of stories that these refugees would identify with. His biggest struggle was that after you turn over 16 years old, come in, guys, there's tons of space. Come. You guys can, there's lots of space up the front. I don't want people to feel excluded. You're most welcome. Guys, if we can just push forward just so these people can get in. Let people feel like they can control what the narrative is. They can control, there's tons of seats over here as well. They can control what stories they tell. Don't tell the community what stories to tell. His biggest struggle is in Serbia, after you turn 16 years old, you no longer have access to education because you're not a Serbian, if you're a foreigner. That was his biggest struggle. We wouldn't have known that. And we certainly wouldn't have known that if we tried to box him within a certain beat or a certain topic. In terms of working with journalists and trying to create more and more journalists, going back to India, we tried to pivot to video without having to invest much money. And what we did was we were covering the story of education. And education is quite a calendar event. It's a boring topic. Every year it's much the same. This many people apply for university. This many people get in. This is how many are left behind, blah, 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 blah. How could we tell it differently? Well, what we did was, again at the Hindustan Times, we got 6 young students, 6 young people who were coming out of school and into university. And we trained them how to Snapchat. And they Snapchatted the most stressful 6 weeks of their lives getting into college. And every week we ended up with a different topic. One week they'd talk about their sex lives. The next week they'd talk about politics with family. The next week they would talk about getting accommodation on campus. And it becomes this like ever-present, evergreen stream of content, and you don't pay a single cent for it. Once you train a community how to tell stories and you empower them and they feel that their voices are heard, they are your community for life. While everybody else is fishing in the same social media pond, trying to discover the next viral video, trying to discover the next thing to go crazy, and they all pull the same thing, you've got your own pool. You've got your own communities who are providing you with original content. And that's what we saw with these young people.
6 people.
6 goals.
6 ideas.
6 dreams.
But one objective.
To make their summer the best days of their life.
This is the first ever. The point here is reality is the new quality. You're going to pitch these ideas to Italian newsrooms. You're going to pitch these ideas to your archaic editors. And they're going to say, yeah, but it's shaky. Yeah, but it's handheld. Yeah, but the audio is terrible. Nobody gives a fuck. We are the YouTube generation. We appreciate authenticity. Real, raw content is what we relate to, is what we empathize with. If anything, our generation feels like we've been lied and manipulated to with high production values and these big cameras trying to tell us what the news is. We relate, no offense, I actually really like you. We relate to real and raw content. Click. The next thing I want to talk to you guys about when doing community journalism is to focus on solutions. Our generation have been flooded in our mobile phones with terrorism and fear-mongering and negativity since the day we were born. We don't want to watch it, and we definitely don't want to share it. Our generation relates to solutions, constructive journalism. Here's a problem in society, and here's somebody or an organization making it better. The most viral Mojo video that I've ever produced got 8 million views, and it was so simple. I found a group of people in Bangalore that were cleaning up the streets, just cleaning up. And I was like, what are you guys doing? And they're like, we believe India is dirty and we are ugly Indians. We're not going to blame government. We're not going to blame society. We're just going to clean it up. It took me 30 minutes to shoot on my phone. It took me 30 minutes to edit, and I put it online. And because it focused on a solution, it got 8 million views.
That guy is urinating on the wall.
Are you an ugly Indian?
All of us here are the ugly Indians.
This place smells like urine. A lot of urine.
This is our problem.
The Ugly Indian is a Facebook group that focus on spot fixing, spotting an ugly part of their towns or their cities and fixing it.
It's meditation.
It's about the broken window theory, that if an area is ugly,
Ugliness attracts ugliness.
but if you can make it beautiful, people will look after it.
Make the space look like somebody's taking care of it.
The tragedy of the commons. We protect our private spaces, but we neglect public areas.
Erase the signs of neglect, which is the posters on the wall and installing symbols of respect. The picket fence kind of a design, sharp edges, triangles, actually works on the psychology of the onlooker that we should not mess up with this space.
In India, there's a real problem of people spitting tobacco to paint the bottom of the street red. So if they are going to spit into that corner, it'll be less visible. But of course, you can't really fix a problem just by painting over it. This is positive, disruptive anarchy.
How to influence people's psychology.
And it's largely based around Facebook. You take a picture before and you take a picture afterwards.
Before and after makes larger impact than that of words.
Nobody's being paid to do this. This is not even an NGO. It's just an idea, the ugly Indian, to make India more beautiful.
That we are all the ugly Indians because unless and until we accept the fact and assume the responsibility of the dirt and filth, we won't be able to solve it.
Have you had an impact on your street? Let us know and share this video.
So that got 8 million views, and I want to look at why some community journalism goes viral and others don't. At the end of the day, we can train communities how to tell stories on their phones, but if those stories are not traveling on the internet and not reaching the right ears and the right eyes and the right faces, what's the point if they're being lost in this great amount of noise on social media, right? The point is, you're training a community to tell stories, and those stories have to compete with Kim Kardashian's latest bikini shoot and a puppy dog racing across a swimming pool and all of the other kind of shit that happens on social media. So we need to build community journalism projects that have virality baked into them. Sorry guys, please push forward. I can still see people at the door. I'm normally that guy at the door. That's why I feel so bad. I'm the guy that arrives late. We need to bake viral concepts into our social videos. And if you have a look at this video, there's a few aspects that you can recreate in all of your videos, and I want to give them to you so you can use them in your videos. The first is the opening 3 seconds. On social media, on Facebook, a video plays automatically for 3 seconds. Within that 3 seconds, you need to grab somebody's attention. What was my opening statement? Anyone remember? What? It was a guy pissing on the wall. That guy is urinating on the street corner. Grabbed your attention. I then went in with emotion. I had the woman say, this is our problem. We need to fix it. Emotion. Only 12 seconds into this video do I start telling you the who, where, what, when, why, how, the tenets of sort of conventional journalism. A traditional TV package starts with, this is the city of Bangalore. It has 10 million people and they have a huge problem with blah, blah, blah. And you know what I see in Italy? I see way too much television that's being taken and put in straight on Facebook, straight on YouTube, straight online, and they just expect it to work. And the reason these videos are not traveling is because they're not designed for social. This video had what? Massive, chunky subtitles. 70% of our audience are not listening to the audio. So we need to create formats where you don't require audio, where you can watch it without the audio on. If you look at the last statement of my video, what positive impact are you having on your community? Share this video and let us know. Facebook and YouTube have already told us they prioritize videos that get a lot of conversations, a lot of engagement. So create videos that end in a question, where you ask your audience not just to comment, but to say something positive about themselves. The actual video has no voiceover. I don't go back to the office and narrate anything. Everything that's said is said in the field. Again, going back to real, raw experiences. This is all solutions-based journalism. And going forward, I encourage you to look harder and harder for solutions and constructive journalism. Why? It's quite simple. Because the what and the when and the where, the three of the sort of 5 basics of journalism, are going to be completed and fulfilled by the social media companies long before the media can catch wind of them. We're going to find an atmosphere where Snapchat and Instagram and Twitter and Facebook are going to be breaking the big stories. And us as journalists, we can't come in there and tell you, oh, I'll tell you that there was an explosion that happened on this time at this date. That's already been told by social media. So we need to focus on the how and the sort of depth, the why. And part of that how and the why includes solutions. How can we make it better, and why is this happening in our communities? We were covering rape and sexual abuse in India. This is point number 6 of 14. We're almost halfway, guys. Bear with me. How are we doing for time? We okay? We cool? Am I halfway through my time? Oh, excellent. We're doing well. Sexual abuse and rape in India. In India, you're not allowed to show the faces and the identities of rape survivors, even if they want to speak out, even if they want to be seen. They're ostracized by their communities, they're alienated from their families, they're thrown out of society. We had to find a way to tell their stories while maintaining their dignity and hiding their identity. How do television broadcasters hide the identity of people? How do they do it? They blur it out. What else do they do? Shadows, silhouettes. We sometimes show hands. This has been the method of hiding the identities of sensitive subjects for the longest of time. But using technology, surely there has to be a better way. I think so. If you look at apps like Snapchat and Instagram, they have incredibly powerful technology baked into them. One of the powerful tools that's baked into them is the face filters. You guys know face filters? All young kids are masquerading behind these funny face filters, clowns and these kinds of things. But that's a powerful piece of technology, and how can we use it to do better journalism? We met a group of rape survivors outside of Mysore, outside of Bangalore. And we were able to train them up in mobile journalism, give them the phone, they hit the red button, and they were able to choose filters that would hide their faces while allowing them to tell their stories.
There are people wearing virtual face masks on Snapchat. Victims of sexual abuse in India are using them to remain anonymous so they can tell their harrowing stories without the fear of being recognised.
I was 5 years old when it happened. लोग मुझे ज़बरदस्ती मैसूर लेकर आए, मुझे एक कमरे में बंद रखते थे, मुझे बहुत काम लगा, बहुत टॉर्चर्स देते थे, घर में से बाहर निकलने नहीं देते.
It's incredibly simple, but as we saw, incredibly effective.
So look beyond the gimmicks. Look beyond the funny stuff and the stuff that's trivial and the stuff that you think, oh, this can't possibly have any applications for journalism, and see the technology baked into these incredible social media devices, these phones. Your phones have got more computing power than the Apollo missions that took us to the moon. They really are one of the most powerful pieces of storytelling equipment we will ever use. And I fundamentally believe that we can use them, if we can look at the technology baked into those platforms, to do better journalism. We were working in Chennai, India, and we were at the Asian College of Journalism. And we thought, in the same way that television broadcasters have a daily news show every day, 7 o'clock. What time's the news in Italy? What time's your evening news? 8 o'clock? Everything starts late here, even the news. It's like, no, we are having espresso at 7. We watch the news at 8. In India, we wanted to try and create a news show entirely built by young people, for young people, on mobile devices. So we trained up in a community of students how to tell stories with their phones. And we started a weekly show entirely on mobile devices, optimized for mobiles, 7 stories per show, just like a TV bulletin, but built for mobile devices.
Rubbed his musty cock on her face.
Condoms across India, adverts during daylight hours of condoms are being banned.
So I guess sex sells, but condoms don't. India just banned all condom ads on TV from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Why? Because it's considered indecent. Contraceptive use in India has already been in decline over the past decade. Plus,
what did we learn? We learned that videos that are produced on mobile phones perform best on mobile phones. We found that our videos that were shot on a mobile device performed 3 times better than our videos that were produced on broadcast cameras. Why is that? It doesn't make any sense. A big broadcast camera worth 10 times the price of our mobile phone should produce a better quality image and should therefore produce a better audience and more views. But that's not the case. When we are shooting on a mobile device, every consideration is for optimizing that content for mobile audiences. We think, oh, these subtitles are too small, let's make them bigger. Oh, my hand's getting tired, this video is too long, let's make it shorter. Oh, I can't see that person's face, let's get tighter. Creating on a mobile device, you are thinking about a mobile audience and how a mobile audience consumes. Every consideration is based on that audience. Where are we going to? We wanted to go, in South Africa, there was a real problem with newsrooms. And the problem was that they didn't represent the majority of South Africa. 80% of South Africa is black. It's black African people. But yet when we looked at the news organizations and we looked at the people that were working at them, a lot of them were white. So we needed to drastically diversify the newsroom. And one way to do that was by building a mobile journalism boot camp. So what we did was we recruited 12 young people from across South Africa who were not part of our echo chamber. They weren't represented in our newsroom. We trained them up for 3 months. We gave them brand new iPhones, and we sent them back out to the community. We said, we don't want to see you in the newsroom. Go back to the rural areas you came from. Go back to the townships you came from and bring stories from places that we're not getting access to. And we called it boot camp. We really did create a more diverse newsroom. We provided diversity to this newsroom. And the cost of doing this is so little. If you're bringing students on board, you're often getting grants from government to incentivize young people to go through internships. You're giving them an iPhone. And by the end of the year, all 12 of them were hired as full-time reporters. None of them came from a journalism background. None of them came from journalism school. But you know what? They knew how to tell stories. That's what we're looking for. We're seeing more and more a trend of influencers and vloggers and people that are not necessarily from a journalistic background that are coming into the journalistic space. I can teach somebody how to do who, where, what, when, why, how to fact check, how to verify, how to accurately do journalism. But it's more difficult to teach somebody how to become a really good storyteller. So we need to start looking for community storytellers, not in the journalism schools, not in the sort of campus newspapers, but totally left field, looking for people that are engaging with their communities, that are already creating conversations. I think you'll find more success in that space. We were working in San Francisco. I'm taking you guys all over the place. We're working in San Francisco with a group called Miracle Messages. And it was amazing. What we did was they go around and they find homeless people. And they record videos, social videos with those homeless people. Who are you? Where are you from? When did you last see your family? And with the permission of the person, they upload those videos onto Facebook. And then with the power of social media, they connect homeless people with their families using social media. It's so simple. Imagine seeing a homeless person and saying, hey, I can't offer you any cash, but you know what I can do? You've probably got friends and family that are looking for you. Let's record a quick social media video. Let's get it online. And as a community, let's find your family. And they've been able to find loads and loads of families, and we're able to help with their training. San Francisco, and you will find 2 things. Hills. Spend a little bit of time in San Francisco, and you will find 2 things. Hills and homeless people everywhere. I'm working with an organization that uses social video to help homeless people find their family.
Hello, Melvin and Jamal. Mom's dismissing you. She hopes you can get with her.
We are trying to find this woman's family. She's homeless. She lives in the streets of San Francisco.
offering folks an opportunity to record a video message to a long-lost loved one. And then we have a network of volunteer detectives that work to try to locate the loved ones, deliver the messages, and reunite families. HOMPSON. Good, I got a phone number.
It's not in service.
37 years old.
I tried a number, it didn't work. So what I found is this.
Yeah, that's it. That's my daughter-in-law and that's my son. Yeah.
Hey, let's try sending him a message.
Your son on Facebook. Now it's just a matter of the waiting game.
You guys get the idea. This is using social media for social good. Being able to connect the dots between communities that are marginalized, that are not being heard by the traditional media, and connect them with voices, with campaigns, with civil society, with organizations that can really help. I think the most interesting story that we've been able to tell with story community journalism recently was actually in Bhatkal. Bhatkal's in the south of India. I was invited, just like this, to a conference to speak for like 2 or 3 days. And everywhere I went to speak, there was not a single woman in the whole room. No woman. I didn't meet a single woman for 3 days. And I started getting alarmed. And I said, this is not right. And I eventually managed to get this community to allow me to train a group of women in the community, how to tell stories with their phones. And we heard such an interesting opinion from these women once we trained them up. It wasn't big broadcast cameras that were getting in there and telling their stories. It was them with their mobile phones, with a little bit of mobile journalism training, a different perspective on a story that is happening across Europe today.
We're not allowed to do what we want to do.
From what age do the girls have to cover their face?
From 10 years.
I want to be a journalist.
A girl must be covered from head to feet as she reaches the adolescence.
Is this oppression or tradition? I was recently invited to Bhatkal in the south of India. It's a really conservative community of about 50,000 Muslims. And everywhere I went to speak, I asked the same question. Why are there no women in this room? There's not one woman in this room here today. Why were there no women here? And at every event, they gave the same answer.
Really isn't a lot of intermingling between the two sexes. One of the reasons why you haven't found a lot of women.
And then finally, I had the opportunity to do a workshop with a group of schoolgirls. Assalamu alaikum! Walaikum salam! What is this place called? Bhatkal! Behind the veils, these are real girls with real names and real ambitions.
My name is Mazia.
Umra, Aina, Kulsum, Raja, Amara, Ilfa, Ilaf.
And what do you want to do when you finish school?
Doctor, artist, civil officer, software engineer, lawyer, teacher.
Everybody wants to be a doctor in this room.
I want to be a journalist. I want to be a journalist.
But here is the problem.
We're not supposed to use social media.
Why?
Our elders don't allow us to use.
Why not?
Ask them.
What else are we not allowed?
We're not allowed to do what we want to do because it comes under our family's name. Because it says it's so-and-so's daughter, so-and-so's granddaughter. They're not allowed to do what we want to do.
This is rubbish. And what about the boys?
Boys, they're given more freedom than the girls.
And how are we going to fix it?
We'll have to try with the journalism.
I asked the girls what issues they had in their communities, and there were many. But the niqab, or the covering of the face, wasn't one of them.
And people think that we are forced to wear it, but that isn't the case.
Hijab is our choice. Hijab is not just a piece of cloth, it is a way of life.
We cover ourselves to avoid the unwanted gaze because face is the focus of temptation and desire.
Myself, Ariba, I would like to be called as a proud hijabi. Shukran.
But when I asked some of the men and teachers who work in the schools and madrasas if the niqab is compulsory, they said,
A girl must be covered from head to feet. During the time of Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, they used to open only one eye so that they could see the road.
The niqab is a complicated issue. For some, it's a choice. For others, it seems like a cultural expectation. So, I've had a lot of different feedback about that piece. It did very well online, but it speaks to the point of checking your prejudice. We find that if traditional media are saying the same story over and over again about the niqab, or about any sensitive subject matter, they generally come with a set of preconceived values, beliefs. Journalists are often more left-leaning, they're often more educated, they're often wealthier than the average person on the ground in various countries. This is the same story. You guys have seen niqab stories play out again and again in Europe, but it's normally Let's interview a right-wing person who doesn't like the niqab. Let's interview a mulana or an imam who supports the niqab, and then let's leave it to you. We don't actually crack into the voices on the ground, and we don't get to a stage where we can start to empathize with these girls and say, actually, they're not so different to us. They also like Game of Thrones, and they have more in common than they do different. And I think that's an opportunity that presents itself with community journalism and mobile journalism, that you really get access to that person. Once we start putting a boom mic and lights and camera in somebody's face, we often clam up. We start to conform to a set narrative, but when people are empowered with their mobile phones to share their story, I believe that we reach a closer version of the truth. Human trafficking, we were telling a story about in Abu Dhabi. In the Middle East, and especially in Abu Dhabi and Dubai, you see countless women that are trafficked from Nigeria, from across the African continent, from parts of the Philippines and Asia, and they're brought to the United Arab Emirates on the pretense of work. The idea that, hey, come, you'll get a job as a cleaner or at a hotel or wherever. And on arrival, many of these young women are kidnapped and forced into prostitution and sex slavery. We met up with a bunch of these women in Abu Dhabi, and naturally they didn't want to show their faces. They didn't want to show their identities, and they didn't want to do the face filter thing either. They felt like it demonized them to an extent. So what we were able to do is give them a wearable camera, give them these glasses. And the young women were able to wear the glasses, press this button, and tell the story through their eyes. So they could take us and say, that's the house where human trafficking survivors are being kept. This is the airport where I arrived. This is my job today. I'm sewing. It kind of decentralizes the storytelling process. For the longest time, storytelling has been centralized around a camera shooting at something. But what happens when that something becomes the camera? When we invert the process and the person we're interviewing starts wearing the camera and shooting outwards. It's just a different perspective. And it really speaks to democratization of storytelling and inverting, changing everything we thought we knew about storytelling. We traveled to Palestine about a month ago, and we wanted to do community journalism, but Palestine's a really hard place to tell stories because you've kind of heard the same stories over and over again for the last 60, 70 years, right? Everyone's heard the same stories. Young people don't really want to share it. They don't really want to engage with it. So how could we tell it differently? Well, we looked for stories of optimism, stories of hope. One such story that was one of my favorites is there's a place that we visited in Bethlehem. And a recent study by a US university found that per square kilometer, this stretch of land has more tear gas than anywhere else in the world. When they surveyed the population, almost 100% of this street had been exposed to tear gas because there's so much conflict there between the Israeli Defense Force and the Palestinian civilians that are living in this area. And then we met a kid who is collecting tear gas cartons and turning them into jewelry. So looking for the most dire place in the world, the most awful environments, and in those environments, finding community stories of hope and optimism. When life gives Palestinians tear gas, they make art. A recent study found that Ida refugee camp populations are the most exposed to tear gas in the entire world.
The Israeli soldier shoot tear gas. I cry. When they finish the gas, I collect tear gas bomb. They cut this.
And then they took the tear gas canisters and made them into like art. Here's a famous like Banksy painting. It's like the wall and kids like riding around it like it's a carnival. Throwing like a bouquet of flowers. Here's the shape of historic Palestine, handmade from tear gas bombs. So we're here in the Ida refugee camp. It's in the southern occupied West Bank city of Bethlehem. It's home to around 6,000 Palestinian refugees kicked out of their homes in 1948. And now 3 generations later, they're still living here in this camp. These are the names of all the villages where the people in Ida are from.
Is there still hope that they will get their land back?
Keys like this, called the Key of Return, it symbolizes the right of return for Palestinian refugees back to their homes in historic Palestine, what is now Israel today.
All right, so finding stories of hope even in the most dire places like Palestine. What did I do with my remote? There it is. I believe the internet's getting smaller. I believe that community journalism is the future. I believe that we're going to move away from this idea of trying to build one social media account with 50 million followers who we don't really know who they are, and we're going to find far more value in niche-focused community stories and groups. I believe that instead of having one account with 50 million followers, it's of more value to have 100 accounts with 1,000 followers on each, specific audiences around interest groups. If I want to sell running shoes in Rome or in Perugia, I don't care about your global account with 100 million followers. I care about your local page that's targeting Perugia audiences that are interested in running shoes. I believe the internet's getting smaller. I also believe that the internet's becoming a worse and worse place. And especially if we look at dark social, if we look at, is WhatsApp big in Italy? WhatsApp? If it's the same as South Africa, WhatsApp is a cesspit for lies and filth. And if we think that Facebook has a fake news problem, WhatsApp is way worse because it's a closed group. Community journalism, half of it for me is about training people how to tell stories. But for me, another very important half is about teaching people how to fact check. At the moment, Facebook are desperately trying to partner up with as many organizations as they can to say, help us fact check, help us fact check. To be honest, don't tell them this. They're never going to find enough organizations because there's too much shit on the internet. We need to empower civilians, communities to be the first guard against fact-checking fake news. We're starting to do this in South Africa. We're finding viral videos on WhatsApp. We're pulling them down. We're fact-checking them. And then we're putting them up on Facebook and again on WhatsApp. And we're saying, this is fake. And here's how you can tell that it's fake. Did Jacob Zuma's son, Duduzane, just get arrested? This photo is going viral on WhatsApp groups across South Africa. But guess what? It's fake. Police raided his house in Saxon World this week and may be investigating links to the Gupta dairy farm scandal. However, he hasn't been arrested and this photograph has definitely been doctored. Here's how you can tell. Download the image onto a computer and go to Google. Click images and instead of searching with text, hit search by image and upload the picture that you want to fact check. Boom! There's the original photo of a Rhodes University student being arrested. And the face has been photoshopped with Zuma's son's face. WhatsApp has a huge fake news problem and it's almost impossible to measure how viral these images go in closed groups and messages. But there's enough crazy shit happening in South Africa and it's already difficult for us to separate what's real and what isn't. So think before you share. This is #OurStories. What's yours? So guys, this is such an easy format and we can do it everywhere in Europe and all over the world. Find fake videos on social media, find out, fact check them, and then don't just tell your audience it's fake. Tell them why it's fake, and tell them the system that you use to identify fake videos so that they don't share this shit. For me, that is one of the most important tenets that I'll leave you with of community journalism. And finally, the internet has no space. I'm going to go back a point if I can. Oops. The internet has no space for control freaks. If you are going to go down this path, if you do believe that community journalism is the future, it is journalism, if you do believe that citizens with mobile phones are the future of reporting, we need to empower them. And that's so difficult for big, large media companies and news organizations because we try so desperately hard to protect our brand. We try so hard to maintain our sense of credibility and the idea that we are the only bastions of truth. We find it very difficult to empower other people to tell the story, to give the mic to somebody else and give them control of our social media accounts. And I think the answer to this is fragmenting, is the idea that, hey, if you're an organization like the BBC, yes, maybe you won't give a refugee your account to do whatever they want with, but maybe you'll create pages and groups and a whole sort of portal and a whole system for refugees to share their stories. Maybe you'll empower them to tell stories on their own. Now, I've given you guys 13 points. We've raced through them. The 14th one is the most difficult, and I hope we can pull this off. We're going to try. We have seen a whole bunch of different technologies over the last, say, 2-3 years. We've seen virtual reality. We've seen live video. We've seen so many different technologies. And for me, none of them have been golden gooses. None of them have fundamentally changed the media landscape. But we are reaching a stage now where it's all coming together, all of these formats. If our differentiator as media is that we look more professional than the journalist, than the community. We look more professional than the civilians. That gap is going away because we're seeing a time where all of the formats that I've showed you to this point are starting to join together. Guys, tech team, can I get you guys to, you guys are going to have to tell me because I can't see shit. Can you guys mirror my cell phone screen, please, on the top? Can you guys do that? And to the audience, can you guys jump in? This only works well when can you guys jump onto my personal Facebook page to the audience on your phones? You can get your phones out now and go to the Yusuf Omar profile page, not my professional page, my personal page. Yeah? Are we on my page? We are. Cool. So you guys can jump onto that page, and I'm going to show you guys where I think the future of community journalism is going and what it's going to look like. Are you guys on my page? On my profile on your personal accounts? And I believe it's going to look something like this. We're going to find ourselves in a situation where communities are going to be able to live broadcast from their homes and create virtual sets. Am I virtually up there, guys? Am I even facing you guys? Yeah. And I think it's going to offer the opportunity for us to, if we've been talking about mobile journalism being the current stage, where people with mobile devices are kind of like doing journalism and they're shooting stuff, we're going to reach a landscape where live video, 360 video, all of these formats are going to come together. And it's going to allow us to do some absolutely bananas shit. If I just give you an example, I'm on my Facebook timeline right now. Can you guys see I'm wearing an IJF shirt? Yeah, I'm doing some branding. And I can go in and just say like, let me go into my videos. I'm going to go in here. And if you guys comment, is Matya in the room? Matya, I'm going to pull up your comment. There you go. Is Eva in the room? Eva, I'm going to pull up your comment over there. Daniela? Hey, Daniela, how you doing? Hello, Daniela, to you. Barbara Batagalia. I'm sure I butchered your surname. I'm so sorry. But the point is the internet's becoming tangible. And in the next few years, we're going to reach a landscape where the entire community, everybody is going to be able to do what I'm doing right now. So what is your role going to be as journalists? Are you going to be able to say, oh, watch us because we've got the best TV studio in the world, we've got the best cameras? I don't think so. I think that you're going to have to do a lot more to differentiate yourself. Are we going to differentiate ourselves by saying, hey, I'm Almita? Almita? Hey, Almita. Are we going to differentiate ourselves by saying we are better fact checkers than everyone else? I don't think so. Imagine if the Washington Post and the New York Times find the same viral video of something happening, and they put it online, and they say, we can verify that it's real, and the other company can say, no, we can verify that it's real. What differentiator is there going to be? So, what I'm saying is, I don't think that the media are going to be able to differentiate themselves on production values. And I don't think that they're going to be able to differentiate themselves on fact-checking alone. So I think they're going to have to move to a stage where we differentiate ourselves based on authentic stories. And we're going to find a landscape, I'm going to put this camera over here, we're going to find a landscape where effectively everybody's going to be able to do amazing stuff. Like right now I can pull up a video and I can play it for you here. Tell me when you guys can see the video. I know it's a little bit delayed on your side. And I'm totally in control of this. There we go. And I can play videos for you, and I can pull up 360 landscapes. And if you even look around, I don't know if you guys noticed, I'm in Perugia. This whole landscape is Perugia. This is something we were shooting this morning. So I'm going to be able to teleport you into all of these amazing landscapes. I'm going to end this video right now. Thank you so much for everyone who watched that bit. And post. There's the table. So guys, the point is, yes, I'm a fucking cartoon with no legs. But look beyond that. Look beyond that. Look at the potential here. Look at the potential for me to take somebody in Jerusalem and somebody in Ramallah and put them in the same room virtually. Look at the potential for the community to be able to suddenly create virtual studios in their houses. Live video hasn't been a silver bullet. Virtual reality hasn't been a golden goose. Even social media hasn't fundamentally changed everything about news. But we are approaching a perfect storm. We are approaching a space where All of these formats are coming together and creating a brand new kind of format that's live, that's virtual, that's social. And when we reach this space, and we reach this space really quickly, as you approach 2020 and 5G internet, this whole space is going to move really quickly. And as media and as journalists, we need to be ready. We need to be ready, and we need to be ready to listen to communities, and we need to be listening to a new form of storytelling. Today they're on mobile phones. Tomorrow they're going to be on something else. The future, for me, of community journalism is not even community journalism. It's just journalism. I got 5 minutes for questions. Thank you so much. Thank you. Now tell me why it's all bullshit. Anyone? Any questions? Hey, 1 second, I think they got to get you a mic.
Hello, my name is Sausen, and I work for a news media development organization.
Excellent.
And thank you for the presentation. I was very inspired
Thank you so much.
by what you tell us, and I believe in community media, that the future is giving voice and power to the community. I work in a region where there is war, and in Syria, in Yemen, and other countries. And I was wondering how do you change people mindset? That they have power, that reporting and communicating about their lives can bring an impact.
Right.
Because I work with many journalists that just have lost hope that what they can do and say can make a difference. And how can you bring back the power to their hand, and so that they can believe and report on it?
It's a great question. I think that there's a generational divide. I think that my generation know the impact that social media can have, right? We have swiped right on Tinder and found our next love. We've scrolled on LinkedIn and found our jobs. We've given birth to revolutions like the Arab Spring in Egypt using our mobile phones. So I don't think my generation needs convincing. I think for older generations, there's definitely a sense of, is this really going to make a difference? And for me, the answer to that lies not in the metrics of likes and views, because I don't think they care about that. They care about engagement. When I was working in India, I had a scenario where the average journalist in our newsroom was like 50 years old. And they're like, Yusuf, bhai, why should I do your mobile journalism? 10 million people read my front page of my newspaper every day. When I could show them that the comments that were coming through, the conversations that were started, that, for me, is the differentiator. That sense of being able to change people's opinions and create opinions and sculpt discussions in a comment section is very, very important. So I would encourage you to spend 50% of your time thinking about how do we train them in mobile storytelling and all of that, and the other 50% teaching them about engagement, teaching them about sharing a video, teaching them about conversations and comments, because that's what really gets to your head. When you start seeing engagement and really good conversations, it encourages you to go back to content creation. But often we do it the other way around. We focus so much on making the content and not have enough time on thinking about how we create conversations. And if you're not watching those conversations, you're not seeing the impact of your work. I hope that helps. Oh, time's up. Time's up, guys. If somebody else is going to come in next, thank you so much for coming. Stick around. I think there's something cool up next. Thank you. Thank you.